So today we're going to talk basically about the 101 about RV boondocking. Typically, an RV that you buy is technically ready to go boondocking. The minute you bought it, it is technically ready to go boondocking because it has all the features, the electric, the sewer, the fresh water, has all these features already there. The thing you need to find out now, before you buy anything, go out to a campsite and don't hook up to any of the facilities. This way you can see how long everything lasts, how long a battery lasts, how long your fresh water lasts. This way you can see everything before you buy anything. Because I don't want you buying a battery and you bought the wrong size because you didn't go out there and see how long your current, battery lasts. Now, typically, your RV will come with a 100 amp hour lead acid battery. And what that means is you get 50 amp hours of actual usable battery out of that. So that's the first thing you need to diagnose to see what you need on power wise. Typically, a lead acid battery is going to get you maybe 2, maybe borderline 3 days of RVing with, just standard lights and maybe kicking the fan on once in a while. But that's about it. Maybe 2, maybe 3. And in the wintertime, your propane heater is going to be running. So that's going to suck up a lot of power to keep that fan running. And a typical lead acid battery will last 1 day camping and during the winter time, the fall, the early spring. When you need that heater running, you're going to get 1 day out of it. Now that you know how much power you need, how much you're using, and you can kind of calculate, okay, if I have 50 amp hours of use and I need to triple that, I'm going to add 150 amp hours of battery power, or one of those 140 amp hour batteries that they sell. That's what I did. I bought one 140 amp hour battery pack, and it's a LiPo 4, so I get a true 140 amp hours of power out of it. That tripled what I had before, the time I can spend out there. Now we need to find out how much fresh water management we need. So when you're out there, and it's probably going to suck that entire tank of fresh water out in probably less than 2 days. Definitely less than 2. There's a great way to save water on your freshwater tank and your gray tank. That is, switch that spigot out on your faucet. Switch the spigots out from that high volume gallon per minute. I think it's like 3 or 4 gallons per minute those things are sucking out, and put a 1 gallon per minute or a 0.5 gallon per minute. Depends on how much boondocking you want to do. The reason why I say this is by default, your RV comes with this high pressure faucet, and it's a sales pitch. That's the reason why they do it. They want you to see that this faucet can, shoot just like the house faucet does. Well, when you're doing that, you're wasting tons and tons of water. So, like I said, put a 0.5 gallon per minute if you really want to conserve a lot of water. And if you don't want to conserve that much, but you still want to conserve a decent amount, put the 1 gallon per minute faucet adapter on. That will save your freshwater tank, and it will save your gray water tank from filling up. Now, typically, your black tanks don't fill up that high. They last pretty long. I bet you that, at least on my RV, I can get probably maybe 6, 7 days out of a black tank. So my black tank really, really lasts a good long time. If you needed more, of course, you can do other options and change the tank out. But my general rule is I'm fine on that. My freshwater tank, even with the new spigot adapter on there, it's pushing like 3 days, maybe a little more, and then I got to fill it up. Now, I can either get a bigger freshwater tank, or I can get one of those bladders that I put in the back of the truck. Those bladders that you put in the back of the truck, you go up to where your refill station is, fill that bladder up, and I'm really looking at like a 50 gallon bladder, and then you bring it back to your campsite, and then you can refill your entire tank up with that bladder. It's a really good idea, and because it holds all your water really high in your truck, most of the time you can get gravity to kind of feed that water out. So those bladders are a pretty good idea. If you can't get the gravity to do it, then you got to have a pump to do it. But again, they're a really good option to get that freshwater tank refilled. So now that we know what kind of battery power you need, and the rest of your items that you need let's now talk about solar panels. So you don't want to talk about solar panels until you know what kind of battery power you need, because your battery power reflects on how much solar panels you need. So the general rule I have is if you have 300 amp hours of battery, then you need 500 watts of solar on the roof. And the reason why I say that is if you have 300 amp hours of battery, you are not planning on using all that in one day. You're planning on using 150 amp hours in one day. And then 500 watts of solar panels will generally charge up 150 amp hours in one day. Now, you're not going to get 500 watts of power out of those 500 watts solar panels. It's just fact. You're going to get a lot less. And just expect it. You're going to get maybe on high noon 350 watts, and it's because they're laying flat and they're mounted to your ceiling on your RV. And if you tilted them up, yeah, you're going to get, probably the full effect during perfect, situations. But 99% of us are just mounting them flat on the rooftops of the RV. That's why I say 500 watts, because you need overkill of the 500 watts. It comes down to 200 to 300 watts of actual power you're getting into your RV to recharge that battery. So that's why I say 300 amp hours of battery, 500 watts of solar. If you have, 140 amp hour of battery, then 200 to 250 watts of solar. So that's my general rule. Oh, another thing before I don't want to forget about this. Don't get cross sizing with solar panels. So if you have a 100-watt solar panel, stay with the 100-watt solar panel, because if you get a 100-watt, then you get a 200-watt, you're actually only going to get 200 watts of solar power charging, because it will take the lowest set and the high 200-watt one will match to the lowest set. So always get, if you stay in the 100-watt panel, then always get 100-watt panels throughout your entire system. If you go a 200-watt panel, then stay 200-watt panels throughout your entire system. So you can get 200 watts, 400 watts, 600 watts, or 100-watt panels, 100, 200, 300, 400, because you got to stay in the same wattage family, or else it just won't work right. So it'll always get the lowest wattage system in the string. So another thing is, if you plan on running an air conditioner off of solar panels, you'll see a million videos on the YouTube saying it's going to cost you all this amount of solar panels. It's going to cost you, 2,000 amp hours of battery power storage at the minimum. So these are all these things you're going to hear. And I'm going to tell you, you can do it. And it's only going to cost you 300 amp hours of battery power storage. It's called a window inverter air conditioner. These air conditioners are this wide, that tall, and this brand is the LG ThinQ 6000 BTU inverter air conditioner. It will cool down 220 square feet, so any small to mid-size RV, it'll cool off, and it does a great job. I have this installed on my RV, and it works great. So it only draws 200 watts of power, and it can even draw a little less sometimes. So you can actually run air conditioning on your battery power on your RV and just enjoy life. The solar panels will power it back up, and you're all set. AC, low wattage, low battery. Another big benefit of this is you don't have to have, your entire roof covered with solar panels. You may not have enough space for 2,000 watts of solar panels on the roof. Like me, I don't have that much space. So 500 watts of solar is perfect for me to power that air conditioner and everything else in the RV. And what I mean by everything else, I mean I got a TV, I got a fan, the typical LED lights. So it powers everything for me. So another thing to lower your battery draw is to install LED lights. These LED lights in your entire RV will run you maybe 7, 8 watts of power. Where if you're in an older RV and you have the older incandescent lights, those lights will run you like 10 watts per bulb being on. And they're not that bright, so you're going to be sucking up a ton of wattage just to light your RV with those old lights. Where these LEDs, they're going to suck up, to light my entire RV right now, and I have every light on. It's probably only doing maybe 8-9 watts of power draw. So definitely go with the LEDs. And another thing is, I say, this is my personal opinion on this, get a low wattage inverter. So a power inverter that's going to run your devices, I suggest staying to 1200 watt power inverter, pure sine inverter. And the reason why I suggest going with a low wattage power inverter is it will keep you in check. It will keep you from having to buy these big giant appliances that are going to suck that battery dry. So because you get a 1200 watt power inverter, it kept me from using the microwave. It kept me from using a giant electric 1500 watt grill. It kept me from buying a coffee maker that will just sit there and run away and use, 1,000 watts, 1,500 watts of power constantly. So because I bought a 1,200 watt power inverter, it kept me in check. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have these features. You can still have the features you need. So, for example, a coffee maker, you can buy a Keurig coffee maker that I'll show in the description, and here's a picture of it right here. This coffee maker runs 800 watts of power, and it only runs for 30 seconds to make a cup of coffee. So 800 watts of power for 30 seconds is a low wattage type of pull, where one of those old coffee makers, they're constantly drawing and keeping that pot warm, so they just draw a lot. And again, the other Keurigs out there, they're drawing 1,500 watts of power, so they draw a lot of power. One I use is 800 watts, low power, good Keurig machine. Another thing is, when I go RVing, my youngest daughter wants ramen noodles sometimes. So we got to have a way to boil water. Well, I don't want to use the stove because that's going to put all this heat in the RV. And when you got heat in the RV and you have AC on, you now make that AC work harder to draw the heat out. You're actually double dipping on your battery. You're putting heat in, and the AC has to pull that heat out. So I bought, it's a little pot, and I'll show it right here, and I'll have it in the description. This pot uses 400 watts of power, and it does a big pot of water, and it boils it really quick and easy. It's low wattage, and it boils water. So it met all the needs I need to. Like, and here's another example. Television. I have a 25-inch TV, so it's, for an RV, it's decent enough size, and it only draws 12 watts of power. So it's really low wattage of draw on the power. So because of this, it keeps me in check. That's why the little inverter keeps me in check to make sure I don't hook up something that's going to draw my battery down. Because if you draw your battery down, you're going to be on this chasing game of, oh, well, I have all these appliances, they're drawing the battery down. I now have to put a new battery in there with a bigger size. Oh, now I got to put bigger solar panels on there. Oh, now I got to have a bigger generator. So the inverter will keep you in check from having to keep buying and building up your RV, putting too much money in these things. So get a 1200 watt inverter. That's my suggestion. Now that we've talked about all these devices and keeping your juice down, if you get a cloudy day, or two, then you need a way to power that battery back up. And your solar panels are not going to do it. So you need a generator. Now the cool thing is, because we kept all these devices down, everything's smaller, the battery's smaller, the solar panels are smaller, everything's smaller. Because of this, we can use a 1,000 watt inverter generator. And again, I'll show you the one I use because this thing is quiet because it's only 1,000 watts. It's super small. It's only like that big, so it's really easy to carry around, to store. So small, quiet, easy to store. It puts out 1,000 watts of continuous power. It can put a surge of 1,500 watts, but I don't really need that. I need, 1,000 watts of power. Technically, I don't even need that. I was actually looking for a smaller one that would do the job, but 1,000 watt was pretty much the smallest you can find. I'm sure somebody can find a smaller one, but this was a good price for what I found. So you take the generator and you plug it into a Victron IP22 charger. What this thing, and I'll show it right here too, it's in the description also. What this charger does is when you hook it up to a generator, it puts 30 amps of pure power to your battery. So every hour, you're going to get 30 amp hours of charge. In 6 hours, I'm going to have 180 amp hours of pure power back into my batteries. And because the generator will run for 6 hours and then run out of gas, perfect. When that generator runs out of gas, my battery is charged. And that generator only uses 1 gallon of gas for 6 hours. So again, it's great savings. It's quiet. It saves on gas. I can charge my entire battery back up in no time at all. Because again, like I said, I have a 300 amp hour battery pack because I have the air conditioner. And that 300 amp hour battery pack, I'm not going to draw it dry. I'm not going to suck that thing dry. I'm going to suck it down, a pretty good bit. And that generator will charge it all right back up. So I can live a very, very long time boondocking with a small generator, small battery pack, small air conditioning, and everything smaller. Now, I want to make a point here. Don't, don't buy those little air conditioners that have the 2 tubes sticking out that you can stick through a window or you can cut a hole in the wall. Those things are so inefficient. They are horribly efficient. Just don't buy those, because you put those tubes out on the wall and you're feeling like, oh, that's cold air. Yeah, you're going to get maybe 40 degrees of cold air out of it, and it's going to suck up tons of wattage for what you're getting out of it. So I bet you it's 4 times less efficient than the inverter air conditioner. So just please don't buy those, because they are so inefficient, and you're going to regret when you buy it, unless you're at a park where you have shore power. So just don't buy those unless you are on shore power. It's just going to suck your battery dry. So another thing you probably should do is, if you are camping, in high summer times or in the winter times, then think about a little bit of insulation. So, for example, these little holes in the roof where the fan's being sucked out, that's a big hole in the roof. There's no insulation there, and your heat just goes right out there. Or summertime, your coldness goes right out. So it'd be a good idea to put little insulators through those. Now, if you are in the fall or springtime and you're camping, you don't need an air conditioner. You need a ceiling fan. And as everybody knows, I'm very cheap, but I'm not cheap on good equipment. So I bought, it's called the Hike Crew ceiling fan. And that ceiling fan runs, it's a lower speed than a max air fan, so it's not as fast. If you need a ton of air, then that's not the ceiling fan for you. But it runs at a decent speed. It's super quiet. I don't hear anything. And it's low wattage. So I just love that little fan, and it's cheap. It only cost me maybe 140, 130 bucks for that fan, where the bigger brands, they cost like 350, 400 bucks for those fans. So I'm cheap, but I'm not, I don't want to buy junk. So another thing when you're out in the boondock areas is you might need cell phone service. And the cheapest way to do this is get a cell phone booster. Now, those boosters, if you don't have signal at all, they're not going to boost it. You can't boost nothing. So a cell phone booster will boost a weak signal into a usable signal in your RV. And that's probably the cheapest way to get, your cell phone signals into your RV. So another thing, if you are boondocking and you are taking these on pretty rough roads, make sure you get a good set of tires on your RV that's not going to go flat. So sometimes street tires are not the best case when you're going off these boondock areas, because you're going to pop a hole in it. You hit a good rock and it's going to pop a hole in it. So just remember, if you're going to be going off roads, not off road, but if you're going to be going off the beaten path, sometimes you need a good set of tires on there to be able to do this, not be stranded. So 2 last but not least items: safety equipment. Like, you're boondocking and you're in the middle of nowhere, and do you feel safe? Well, you probably should feel safe, because technically people are the damaging items in the world, kind of. So you should feel safe because there's less people. Technically, at your home, when you're at your house, you have a higher chance of getting something bad happening to you than when you're boondocking, because when you're boondocking, there's not many people out there. Now, because there's not many people out there, you need to do one thing, and that is to ensure that you're not going to be a target. What does this mean? Well, put a camera on your RV. put a sign next to the door and on the other corner of the RV that says, hey, there's a camera, you're being watched. And that will deter someone from doing something bad to you or your RV. Another thing is chain things up. Put a cable around some devices, that are left out, and now somebody that comes up isn't gonna steal something. It's gonna deter this from happening. Put a trailer hitch lock on your RV. I say always have a trailer hitch lock on your RV because no matter what, somebody can hook up and steal it. One thing people don't know of is they'll take the chains and people will hook the chains to their truck and tow away your RV. So take those chains and hook them around, hook a lock to it so that the person can't use your chains to drag your RV off. So that's a way they can steal your RV even if you have a lock on the tongue. So basically, we want to make it so we're deterring something bad happening. And that's what all this is about, is deterring anything bad from happening. And the final thing is leave no trace. And I know everybody says no trace, and they're thinking, oh, it's because we're being good to the earth. And some people are like, I don't care. But everybody should care, because if we don't keep these grounds clean, we don't keep these boondocking areas clean, then the government's going to shut these places down on us and we can't use them anymore. And there's nothing we can do about it. It happened during the pandemic. People were going out there and they were just trashing some of these places, and the government had to shut them down so they can go in there and clean them up. But again, we could have been using them if people didn't trash it. So if we keep it clean, we get to keep using these areas. If we don't keep it clean, then the government's going to shut it down, and there's a chance, even because you know how it works, there's a chance they won't open it back up for us to go camping out there. So keep it clean, and we'll get our campsites back the next year, and maybe we'll get more campsites the following years. So that's number one rule: keep it clean out there. So that pretty much wraps up this episode. And if we missed anything for boondocking, please let me know, because I want to add a comment or add another video on it. I want to inform you all of everything out there for boondocking. So we'll see you next episode.